Hello, my name is David Turner and this is another episode of Lunar Poetry Shorts. Today I'm joined by Cheryl Mclennan. Hello, Cheryl.
Hello, David.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
As normal, we will start with a poem.
Okay.
Or a couple, possibly.
Okay, I've got two short poems here, and the first one is about the Silverback Gorilla. He sat staring at us whilst chomping on a handful of leaves. It was 30 degrees, not even a gentle breeze stirred through the trees. The guide waffled on in the scorching heat about the demise gorillas will eventually meet. The silverback stood up, lobbed a banana at the guide. It hit him on the back of his head, and attached to it was a handwritten note that read, "Piss off, will you? I'm depressed enough as it is." Can't blame him, can you really?
No, I think I do the same.
You both. And this is it's a tiny. This is a poem about a tiny little toad. It's the Colorado river toad. Anyway, this is he. I sat happily snacking out on insects. That is until you came along. You grabbed me unceremoniously, plopped me on a glass plate and rubbed vigorously underneath my chin. I became agitated and aroused and had no choice other than to secrete my milky magic fluid. I watched as you waited for your illegal prize to crystallise. You then scraped up my very essence, loaded it into a pipe and smoked it, you crazy bastard. I mean, can you imagine being that poor little toad? How awful is that?
I don't know what image I have in my head when I think of someone smoking my very essence. Let's move on, I think. Hello, Cheryl. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, nice to be here, thank you.
As always, the first question is why poetry?
Well, I think why poetry is it kind of helped me really to find, my own voice and, my own rhythm, and it's a way of writing that I like. I can be quite kind of succinct. And I first, I suppose I've come to this quite late, really. 10 years ago, I met Murray Shelmerdine on a creative writing course at Jackson's Lane Community Centre. And when we finished the course, Murray, who's got a community cafe and gardens, and they do a poetry and music night there once a month on a Thursday. So Murray said that, we could kind of meet there each Monday. So we did that, for 8 years. And
was that something you got into deliberately? Like, were you writing before and you wanted to get involved with a group, or was that just by chance you just wanted to try something else?
Yeah, no, I've always sort of written, and I've written sort of short stories, but I just thought that it would be good to be in a group of people to get ideas and be able to share ideas, really. So we produced several anthologies, short stories. And then it was about 5 years ago, I went to Bangsaid the Gun over in South London.
Yeah.
And,
just around the corner.
Yes.
From here.
Yeah, and I won the raw meat. I think it was the raw meat stew, tequila shots, and so the sort of performing started from there, really. Yeah.
And what have been your main influences as a writer or performer? And are they the same thing?
Yeah, it's sort of, I suppose, because I was kind of born in the 50s, so I liked a lot of the comedic performers, women like Thora Hird, Dora Bryan, Hilda Baker, and really good stuff on the radio, like Round the Horn, Kenneth Williams, all that type, and of course the influences of music in the 60s. Ola Guthrie, Woody Guthrie, these people, poets and musicians, and Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, Leonard Cohen, and Frank Zappa, and all the kind of like different types of sounds. And I did like particularly Richard Brautigan, Watermelon Sugar, and inspired by different writers, Lessing, Steinbeck, Morrison, Woolf.
I have to agree with you there. I think I always say to people they should check out a lot of the older radio programs because of the way that people had to use their voices in order to be understood by radio audiences. And it's amazing now you can download if you wish to.
I know
a lot of these programs, you know. recently I bought a load of old cassette tapes of there's Round the Horn and a few other things. I still don't have a cassette player.
Yeah.
I think you can buy the cassettes, can't buy the bloody players anymore.
Yes, I think actually I might have a cassette player you could have in my cupboard at home.
I'd be most appreciative of that. Maybe we should take another poem or two.
Well, this is, I always kind of think, why have sex when you've got a bag of sherbet lemons? Really, basically. Because I haven't had a lot of, good sex, I have to say, and this is the nearest that I've ever come to S&M. And anyway, this is called Sherbet Lemon. You lie there seductively on my bed. I pick you up and remove you from your wrapper and pop you inside my mouth where you rest ever so briefly. Sliding you from side to side, I suck and caress you slowly with my tongue, pushing you gently in and out. I lick your sticky sweetness from my lips and bite into your crystallized case. Your harshness fills my senses. From sharp and back to sweet, again and again and again and again, a bitter and almost pleasurable pain. Oh my, you gorgeous yellow sweetie, how I adore you. And it's about, I don't cook really, for anyone, because people become very kind of fussy really about food, and it's not as easy, as it used to be really. You could just smoke a spliff and, have crisps on toast and everybody was happy, but now it's
I think
things have changed.
I have to Google that because I don't think anyone knows what a spliff is anymore.
Oh, don't they? Am I using old language now? Old language.
No, I think that nobody knows what cannabis is anymore. It's all those silver canisters everywhere. I don't know what's going on.
Laughing gas and legal highs. Yeah. Okay, this is fruit teas. I don't cook for anyone anymore because it has become far too complicated, because there are always at least 2 vegetarians who eat fish but not with the head on, a vegan who wears leather shoes, and a lapsed macrobiotic maniac who eats everything but in a somewhat guilty fashion. And people demand to know if the food has been baked or roasted, boiled or toasted, and then that dreadful voice asks in a challenging way, "Do you have any fruit or herbal teas?" Yes, I do, I say. I have blackberry, cranberry, orange, echinacea, bilberry, blueberry, peppermint, cardamom, chamomile, elderflower and hibiscus. And a satisfied smile spreads across his face. Ah, but do you have any gyokuro tea? Because I'm just back from Japan, and that tea is fantastic. It's light and aromatic. No, I reply, but what I do have is a garden full of Japanese knotweed, so go and fucking suck on that. So if you come to see me at my flat, you have to bring your own tea.
Yeah. So the next question is regarding how you now critique your own work, and that you might not do. That's the fair answer as well. Do you have anybody you share your work with, or?
Yes, Murray Shalmerdine, and also Charlotte Stubbs. Charlotte and I have done quite a bit of writing together, so I'll often read stuff to her, or then she gives me feedback, and sometimes I spend a lot of time writing and then chucking it in the bin, and kind of. It just seems to take forever.
Do you edit your poetry a lot?
Yes,
change
I do.
A lot from
I
drafts,
do. Yes, I do. I mean, I can get stuck on a sentence, for days sometimes, actually.
I can imagine that. The way you write, the way each sentence often stands out, it seems like you might have spent a lot of time getting it right, especially with the rhythms that you play with. It has to be spot on, doesn't it? That's the aim,
Yes, I kind of have to be able to kind of feel, that rhythm, really.
Do you think that comes from listening to radio when you were younger?
Yes, I think, it was always,
there's a similar rhythm, I think.
Yeah, because of course there were only kind of like a couple of stations on TV, and the radio choice was sort of quite limited. So I did listen to lots of radio as a kid, really. Yes.
And having talked about how you critique your own work, is there any direction you'd like to see your writing travelling?
Well, I think at the moment I'm sort of quite interested in, writing monologues. There are quite a few kind of things that I'm interested in and concerned about, and one is, becoming old in society, and globally how people are treated. It's like they're kind of like almost like airbrushed out. There's a lot of issues around elder abuse, so this is something that I'll be working on. And also, I'm getting my book of poetry together. I've already got a CD, so yes, that's what I'll be doing.
And why does that form of writing appeal to you? Is it just in terms of being able to tell more of a story, or?
Because it needs to be out there, really, and I think it's not something that's sort of, really talked about. I think there are so many sort of negative images now, around older people and issues, and also with cutbacks and care, quality of care.
It's quite often also when those stories are told, they're not told by people of that age or close to that age. Quite often they're written by younger writers, aren't they?
Indeed,
perhaps they've been part of a community group, meeting people in that position. But quite often they're written by younger people.
Because I kind of think, now I don't know what it's going to be like in 20 years' time, and we're all heading in the same direction, and I think that the quality of care, really needs to be, kind of looked at.
Yeah, but
and the availability of care, really, and price.
But in not so much regarding the theme that you're writing about, but the writing style, writing monologues or writing maybe a short play or short stories. Why does that appeal to you, writing in that way?
I think because I can use a different voice, really.
Yeah, you feel like you can develop a voice that's different from
yours. It's a kind of almost like a different sort of representation, really.
Do you? So certainly the poems you've read so far have been quite funny, well, very funny. Did that sound sarcastic? That wasn't supposed to. That was genuinely. People will have heard me laughing. I always find when I'm giving praise, it always sounds really sarcastic. My question was going to be, is that a deliberate choice, or do you find it hard to not? Would you find it hard to not write humorously in poetry?
I mean, I think that most of the time I do sort of, put a comedic slant on, on my poetry and writing.
So do you think with the slightly longer form of writing, with the short stories and possibly monologues, it's easier for you to move away from that comedic style and write maybe more seriously?
Oh yes, definitely. I get into a much deeper and darker place.
Yeah. And actually, it's something I was thinking, because we were just as a clarification for the listeners, we were chatting just before we started recording about this idea of sort of working class guilt, because so you moved down to London from Stockport. How long ago was that? Well,
I've been in London now for 30 years. And I think that, growing up in the 50s, in a working class family, there was this terrible sort of deference that was kind of everywhere, really, and you weren't, but I personally wasn't encouraged to, find my own voice. The expectation was, low, very low, really. So in actual fact, I've actually come to this quite late in life, really.
But do you think maybe the sort of comedic style comes from that feeling of poetry was never something for you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
I found it a lot with sort of poets that would identify themselves as heavily working class. There's a lot of humour in their work, and it sort of seems to come from that idea that you're trying to, if you make a joke out of it, you can't really be judged.
Yes,
although your work, you've perhaps passed that point, which is just stuck with humour, but.
Yeah, it is that. I think I've, many of the people that I've spoken to also, it's like, playing the clown a little bit, that kind of like covers up really for so much, feeling of kind of like inadequacy, or the fact that, as a working class woman, you had no right to have a voice, or, so yes, that's important.
And so do you think with the short stories and the monologues, it's easier to be serious because it's a different form? You can sort of, it's not a new start, but you've developed enough with your own writing that it can now be, you can now start writing seriously
Yes,
that's fine. I sort of answered that for you. That wasn't a question, was it? I stated something toward you. We'll take a third and final poem.
Okay.
Please.
Well, this is, unfortunately, there's some truth in this poem, and I think that, how we deal with death is, quite ridiculous, and I think that, people can be extremely insensitive, around people that are dying. So this is called Catherine. Catherine, lying, almost dead, could hear all the conversations taking place near her bed. The district nurse who complained and said it was Harold bloody Shipman's fault that they had so much extra paperwork. And upon hearing this, I saw Catherine's eyelashes briefly flutter when her partner of 40 years mused in an audible mutter, "Do you know what? I've always fancied a bungalow in Brighton. Nothing too big, mind. Smallish garden with a good-sized shed." Well, raised his eyebrows and indicated towards the bed, assuming she could not hear what was being said. She then had to listen to the tales of people who had died, where, when and from what, including someone or other's Uncle Stanley, who died whilst on the loo and wasn't found for 3 hours. Well, I thought it could have been far worse than that. Joyce Carol Vincent wasn't found for 3 years in her Wood Green flat. Then she had to listen to them ordering a carry-out. "Go on then, get us fish and chips, get me chips and peas, a couple of meat and potato pies and a Savoy sausage." And later, when scoffing their food, her funeral arrangements were discussed. It was noted she didn't really want to fuss, and someone suggested organic orbitals. Only cost £2,000, but there's no titivation. Once the lid's on, that's that. Catherine suddenly yelled, "Oh, shut up, the lot of you!" And staring stoically, facing the wall, she died, probably giving up from the sheer boredom and ultimately the meaningless total banality of life and them all.
Thank you very much. Okay, so final question. What would you recommend to our listeners to go out and see or read or watch?
Well, I just think that, being in, London, there's so much stuff out there. Just go and see loads of films, read loads of poetry, go to loads of spoken word nights. Yeah, we're lucky to be here.
And as we were talking before, the last thing you want to do is go out and look at any pretty landscapes. No hills or trees.
No.
Keep in amongst it.
Yeah.
Keep your mind busy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's strange that, isn't it? That you would think that you would get out into the, by the sea with the,
Yeah. Because as we were talking before, I think we both find inspiration in like a busy urban environment,
the stimulation.
And both find it really difficult to write when there's peace and quiet.
Yes, it just kind of frees your head up, doesn't it? Too much, really.
Yeah, nothing worse than a blank page in the English Riviera. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Well, thank you, David.
I think I nearly wet myself at one point. It was hilarious.
Well, I've got a bag of Sherbet Lemons in my pocket. I'll suck on one of those later.
Okay, thank you very much. And you lot.